Hello and welcome to the Just Mates podcast, where we aim to destigmatise men not speaking up about mental health. Remember to follow our social pages on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Just Mates Pod. You can listen to and subscribe to our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Anchor and Apple Podcast. All links are provided in the description. In today's episode, we discuss goals. This is a bit of a different one, maybe not so much as deep as the other topics, but still something that a lot of us are quite worried about, really, achieving our own goals and stuff.
Yeah, I think we can split this up between short-term, medium-term, if that's a thing, and long-term.
Yeah, I think it's the whole idea of goals is thinking ahead as well, isn't it? And that can kind of lead on to like mental pressure as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely vital that you set your goals, no matter what they are, even if it's daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. You need to have something to work towards.
And I guess the whole reason this topic kind of came up is because we all know, and as much as it seems like this is the only thing that we've been talking about for the last year, is coronavirus hindering all of our progress, really. I mean, a lot of people have succeeded throughout 2020. I've seen a lot of people tweeting and putting out posts saying they've had promotions here and there. They've ended up actually in a better position, this and that. But a lot of us have been in a situation where mentally our goals have just not been achievable.
Yeah, well, it's you can think about it that way, or it's reshaped a lot of goals.
That's another good point. Yeah.
So originally, I had a goal to. I didn't tell you this, but my goal was to originally stay with the previous company that we were working at for just over 2 years. 2 years, and then either seek promotion or go somewhere else. But obviously, with this that's happened, they completely cut that goal short. And I looked elsewhere, and now I have new goals.
Yeah, and they've just been reshaped and moulded, haven't they?
Yeah, and that's the most important thing with goals is, like, if the circumstances changed, it's not fixated at all, like your previous circumstances aren't fixated, then you should be able to be fluid and adapt to that situation.
I think, goals are just interchangeable as well, aren't they? One of the biggest things that you end up learning throughout life, and you don't think about this before until you really experience it, is what you've just said. Like at the start of the year, you might have a goal of losing 20 kg, for example, and then you get midway through the year, you've lost 10, and you suddenly feel like I'm in the best shape that I've ever been in. Let me start toning up, and you don't lose the remainder of the 10 kg that you wanted to lose because your goals just changed and you've realised I want to do something different. And that's just one little comparison, but just job-wise, you might think at the start of the year, I want to be a design director, and then get to the middle of the year and realise, actually, it seems to me that the climb to design director isn't what I thought it would be. Let me become a creative lead. And
that's kind of what I pictured it with being in this new role that I have. I always have a 5-year plan for things, no matter what, and 9 times out of 10 that plan gets skewed one way or another, and that's totally fine, but it does have it just gives you something to work towards. So right now I'm executive. By within 6 months to a year, I'm going to be senior, and then 2 or 3 years manager, sort of thing. Just having loose goals like that is quite good, but you can't. The thing is with goals like career advancement, you can't pin a date on it, and
you can set yourself like a time span in your own head, but it doesn't always go to plan, really. And I think, as you said, it was a really good way you've put it, is that your goals do get skewed, and having long-term plans is great because you start to speak things into existence as well. But as you said, when they get skewed, you start to realise that your mindset has changed and you don't want what you initially wanted. And new doors end up opening.
Yeah, I kind of the best example to kind of put that in. I don't know if it was the best example, but I can kind of relate to it. So when I first started playing football, right, American football, I thought I absolutely loved this sport. Being 1 year in, I was like, maybe within 5 years I could make it to GB, like Great Britain, maybe, because there's a couple of guys that I know that have played for Great Britain that were on my. One of them was on my previous team, and one of them is on my current team. And I remember sitting in a cafe after work and just plotting it out and just saying, this year I'll do this year this. And looking back at it now, all of those goals are shifted. I do not want to play Great Britain. Like, the amount of effort and the time that it takes do that. Like, am I ever going to be at the caliber to perform on that level? No, I'm not, and that's fine, and I accept it. But it's kind of, you got to have the mindset. Is it realistic?
Yeah.
But then again, is setting realistic goals good? Like, is realistic? Should you be too optimistic? Do you know what I mean?
I think it restricts your ambition if you do kind of pinpoint just the realism of the situation. Like, say, for example, you tell yourself that I can only do this in this amount of time, then you're kind of halting at, I don't know how to explain it, but you're kind of stopping yourself from going further than your own expectations. So like, for example, I could be actually, just for example, it could be like the job application process. A lot of us could be in our heads think, I'm not ready to be a certain position. So say, for example, for me, I'm midweight now, but say, for example, I just carried on applying to junior because that's the role I came out of. I'm kind of thinking, I'm setting myself president of that. I'm not ready to be midweight, but the people that are rejecting me at a junior level could be because I'm actually overqualified and I shouldn't be applying in that bracket. And it's because I've restricted it in my mind that I'm not ready. Whereas if I'd have applied within the midweight section, I would have got a job straight away.
Yes, it's an interesting point there, actually.
So I think it's also exceeding your own expectations and not just setting yourself just one level flat.
Yeah, but to an extent, they do have to be realistic. I mean, like,
I think with you as well, there's I'm not going to mention the names that you've mentioned to me, but some of the things that you've brought up to me about your current work, just generally, like, just the things you've said, that's not stuff that you expected or even had in your mind at all. And they've come up, and now that's kind of skewed your future goal because you've realised you can actually aim higher.
Yeah, it kind of it was weird, really. Being the first week in this job and hearing all these amazing things, I kind of have to like pinch myself, you know. And then it has made me realise, like, oh, this is quite cool.
Yeah, and you're capable as well. Because I think that what you said about in 6 months' time or a year, maybe you said, I think, going to senior position, when you initially applied for this role, that wasn't in your mind as such. No. Like, you wanted to get there, but you didn't think it would happen so soon. And when you were told and recommended for that position as well, I think that kind of fills you with more confidence. And then that fuels more goals for the future.
Yeah, it does, really. You've got to envision this. So if you have a goal, I often find if you have a goal for something, your attitude and the whole persona changes to suit that goal. And if it doesn't, then you should maybe consider changing things so you could be better suited for that goal in the long term.
But these are what we've just mentioned are kind of long-term goals. Like, I guess I'll get a bit personal here with regards to my goals for this year. I was hoping to be potentially having had a promotion in my job that I was in, and built my portfolio and also earned myself the title that I felt that I deserved. But
Yes.
obviously, with Corona happening literally within the first quarter of the year, that kind of set me back like 2 steps. So I was, not only was I stagnant in my position, I was also just not working, because obviously there was no work going. I was furloughed. And then that whole time, it's really, you know, as well as I do, Sam, like you've been there for me. It's kind of set me back mentally, and it's put a lot of pressure on me personally, because I feel like where I've been so stagnant, I should have achieved so much more. But everyone that I've spoken to about it, you as well, including, have always told me that it's not because you didn't want to achieve them things, it's because Corona happened. And I think for a lot of people will be able to relate to this, is not to blame themselves for not actually achieving their goals for this particular year. Like 2020 was meant to be a milestone for a lot of people, for growing as a person, growing in a career, growing financially. But Corona has hindered that progress. But it's not ourselves. We're not to blame. It's not because we're not ambitious enough or intellectual enough or clever enough. It's because Corona has literally put a stop to a lot of things.
Yeah, and you could also put it in the perspective of things could happen for a reason.
Yeah. I think I do this poster challenge, and one of the posters that was quite a bit of a hit was, it was just a simple one. It was just a door opening, and I just used the quote of, when one door closes, another opens. Yes. And I do find that's very true. Like, one of my best mates, Naz, he was in a shitty situation job-wise, mentally, about a year or so ago. And out of nowhere, he got this opportunity where he's working now. He got a girlfriend and things like this. And he was talking to me about this the other day when I was in a bit of a bad place. And he was telling me that you just don't know when one little thing can just change your whole outlook on life. And now his goals have changed as well. Like, just generally, like I just said, like, one door closes, there's just so many things hiding behind another door that you just didn't expect.
Let me put it from my angle, and that's interesting you said that. So this has kind of sparked a thought. What you find is a lot, your 20s are kind of, if you do it properly in terms of career and ambitions, is to kind of climb the ladder.
Yeah.
And get experience, and your 30s to an extent. What you find is, and this is in research somewhere, I can't remember the exact article or who exactly said this, but this is true. So what people do is they often work and grind their ass off until their 20s, throughout the 20s, and in some way till about 35, and then they get to the peak of their career. Maybe they're at director level, maybe even further, board member, something like that. Maybe they're at the top, working 60-hour weeks, getting paid a lot of money, and then an epiphany sort of comes, and they realise this is not for me. And then that's when people start branching off and having other interests and families and stuff, like more your focus directs more to family, and that's a natural fact. I think it's more well known in women. So women in high power positions in like law firms or something. I think I said this before.
Yeah.
So like women in like law firms typically go to like senior level, or board, something like ridiculously high, amazing high achievers, and then they get to like 35, 40, and then they realise, oh, it's time to hunker down and have a family, because what I've been working towards is just not, it's not worth it. Like, family is much more important.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because in your 20s, your maturity levels, I'm not saying that people aren't mature at all, I'm just saying generally your maturity levels are a lot different to when you are 30, because obviously, without generalizing, when women get to a certain age, they kind of have it in their heads that they need to have a family by now. because that's just how women work. And even guys do think like this, but I think there's a lot more pressure on women in that sense, because obviously getting pregnant isn't that easy when you're older, and there's just so many other complications just generally. I think it's an amazing thing that you've just mentioned, actually, that for women, and when you get to your 30s especially, your mindset is completely different to when you were 20. 20s, you want to grind and you want to work and earn the money so that you can live your 30s luxuriously.
Yes.
And that's kind of where your goals are set from. So you're 20, 21, and your 5 year, like we've just spoken about our 5 year goals. We have that because we know that when we get to our 30s, we want to be able to just relax.
Yeah, well, yeah, semi-relax. I mean, obviously, there's not going to be relaxing if you and me are like above manager level.
No, of course.
That's going to be hard, but at the same time, you need to put the graft in order to get to that stage. And why not do it in your 20s when you've got less baggage?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the whole premise of it, is when you're younger, you don't have a lot of responsibilities, and like, for example, a lot of people living at home are probably a lot financially better off, even though they've not got a job, because they don't have to pay out for their own expenses. Whereas, say, for example, if you were to have not had a job now after being made redundant, you would have to force yourself to change your goals or just put a pause on them and just bite your tongue, and I said this before the call, swallow your pride and just do something out of your comfort zone, just so that you can be able to be mentally ready to work towards your goal when the time is right.
Well, that's a very good spin on it as well. I've got another spin. How do you suss that a goal is worth it?
Do you know what? A lot of people climb to the top and they try so hard to climb to the top, but they get there and they realise it's quite a lonely place. Yeah. So it kind of, I think the way you can define if a goal's worth it or not is who you're going to share that success with.
Yes.
I think that's what's really important. And no matter what happens, how good of a position you're in, how amazing you've done in your career, it's really important to check yourself every so often and kind of humble yourself, because things can be, as quickly as you can achieve certain things, they can be snatched away from you just like that.
Very true, actually.
So, I mean, just like you, for instance, you're doing really well, Sam, and like I have to commend your efforts, and the amount of knowledge you have in the industry that you're in is actually impeccable, and it's obviously aiding the things that we do for Just Mates as well, like the YouTube side of things and the social media side of things. But I just mean generally, like, that's important to know, and you can use that wherever you go, really. But then for you as well, it's important that you realise that all these great names that you're hearing at work, they could also drop just instantly, just like coronavirus just came and stopped everyone's progress. We just have to humble ourselves. Yeah,
and don't whinge and moan if you don't get to a goal. Just reshape and adapt.
Yeah, I think it's really good that you keep mentioning that as well, the reshape and adapt. And like you said, your goals will always become skewed. Like, no matter what you do, you might get to a goal and realize this isn't even enough, and then have to alter your goal and that's when you probably realize that, is it worth it?
Yeah, here's a good spin on it. Keep using that term, spin on it, but I quite like it. What's another word for spin on it? Take. Here's another take on it. This is really weird. So I remember, and I know I refer quite a lot to doing my degree. I remember doing my degree and absolutely busting my ass to get the grade I got. And when I finished and I got it, I was like, "Is that it?" I got the certificate, and I was like, "Is that it?"
Just a bit of paper,
Yeah. And then after, like, as I was doing my degree, I thought, I could never do a master's. Like, I don't even know how people do PhDs. Like, well, this is it for me in education. And once I finished, it was really weird. I was like, could do a master's now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I won't do that, but it's like I do like on almost like a monthly basis. I look at masters courses, even though I'm not going to do them. It's really weird.
I think it's just a lot of people kind of, and I used this word before in my own situation because of Corona, but this is just generally people without Corona having been here. They kind of sidestep their whole life. So they don't really, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Some people can just get comfortable and be happy with what they've achieved, and that's all they need. But a lot of people sidestep and don't think ahead. Whereas I think with you, that's a great thing, really, that you look for PhD courses, even though you know you're not going to do it. It kind of gives you like a backup plan as such, because you know that even if you had to, say you was in a position where you lost your job, you did this and you thought maybe education is the path that I want to go down again, just to restructure my life. You know that I've spent this whole year every month looking at some courses, so I know what I could do.
Yeah. That's an interesting point. So it's kind of like plan B, right?
Yeah.
What was this amazing? All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
A few moments later.
Right. Oh well, I can't find it, but here's kind of. I'm paraphrasing here. So I think the quote was something like, it said there was like, if there was two rabbits running, how are you going to catch them both? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You put your focus on one, don't you?
Yeah, you should put your focus on one specifically. You can't catch two rabbits. Essentially, I think that's correct. But it's like transfer your efforts into something which is truly worthwhile, and don't spread your effort across things that are just, you know, if I'm saying that, oh, you know what, Naf, just for argument's sake, I'm going to be working full time. I'm also going to have a family, and I'm also going to be running marathons, and I'm also going to be, I don't know, playing football for England. You tell me off, because
you're trying to catch too many rabbits in one go.
Yeah, just what's the juiciest rabbit? You know?
Yeah, do you know what, that's made me think of something as well, which is kind of on the line of goals changing. Is, you know, when I left uni,
yes,
obviously I knew what I wanted to do. I've always been interested in graphic design, but when I started, I always thought to myself, I don't want to be one of them people that's just honed in on one skill and can only do one thing. Mm-hmm. So I tried to be a jack of all trades. So I was always open to everything, saying yes to all kinds of design things. So that was my initial thought process when I left uni, and I got the job straight away. But as I started developing myself as a designer in my role, I started to hone in on a certain few skills that kind of shaped me as a designer.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've heard of this saying, is don't be a jack of all trades and a master of none. So don't try and do everything at once, but not be known for anything specifically, and be good at just one thing. I think what I'm trying to say is I do feel like I'm a versatile designer now, but I've kind of developed myself as a type of designer that I want to be now, and I'm working towards that in my own time, like digital. So basically for me, it would be, I'm not trying to be an overall graphic designer. I want to be a digital designer, and that's my goal, to be specifically demanded for my skills in digital design. And I think that's kind of, my goal has changed since I left uni, and that just goes to show that certain goals aren't worth it because you realise that that's not you.
Yeah. Do you think it's best to double down on your strengths and not focus on your weaknesses, or focus on your weaknesses and keep your strengths in line?
I think it's really hard because you might go down a path where you've never had to focus on your weaknesses, but then there comes one project in line or one job in line that demands a need for them things that you're not so good at, and you've focused all your energy on catching that one rabbit, that this other rabbit is literally going to die.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It is difficult because it just depends how much manpower and how much strength in your mind you have to be able to hone in on them weaknesses.
Yeah, I mean, I've this is like a weird example. So I'm not really too great with maths, right? It's like academic maths, algebra, things like that. I never really have been that talented in that regard. But I thought I like business, so I'm actually a qualified AAT technician.
Okay.
I did that at college, and then I chose a finance module at university, and I've also bought those finance books, which I generally read like when I can be bothered. So I guess that's a way that you can kind of do it. Just do a bit, focus on your weaknesses a bit on the side. And make sure that's really relevant.
It's just like, for example, if I wasn't good with Excel, I'm not saying that that's something that I need in my job, but I mean, it doesn't hurt to know it. But say, for example, I found out that Microsoft Excel is my weakness. Just like you said, even if you don't have the strength to focus on it every single day, maybe set aside an hour a week or 2 hours a week to just go over the basics, so that when you are in your job and you're demanded for Excel, you're not just going to say to them, sorry, I can't do this. You can just use them basic skills and say, oh, well, sorry, but I've got a basic understanding. Is there a chance that I could have some more time to learn this, or could you show me this? It's just a willingness.
Yeah, and don't go 100% on your weaknesses.
Exactly, because then you lose your strengths.
Yeah, I think it's balancing the scales, isn't it? And if you tip it one way too much, then it's just gonna fall apart. I'm only realistically doing finance like as a hobby on the side. It sounds a bit weird for a hobby, but just learning about it because I know I'm going to be doing an MBA in about 5 years, and finance is one of the most important parts, especially if you're doing anything managerial, or you want to own a company. You have to know finance.
Yeah, and it just puts you at an advantage, doesn't it? And even if you say, for example, for any reason in 5 years you weren't to do that, you would still have all the knowledge of finance.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not like you're losing anything. If anything, you're gaining something that it will just benefit you in other areas.
Yeah, and it can make you feel good about it, like if you're in my stance, if you're doing anything marketing related, what are the chances the other candidate next to you or like the other person next to you knows anything, about finance at all?
Yeah, that's kind of how I started in it to become a digital designer, really, is when I initially left uni, we weren't taught After Effects, which is one of the softwares, just for people listening. And I ended up just learning that off the back of my own time and just learning it. And I know that before I got to the role that I was in with Acuity, there were a few jobs that were pretty much said that I stood out because I knew After Effects, whereas a lot of the other candidates were just general designers. But and a lot of the applications that I've seen now have said that good understanding of After Effects is a plus, a benefit. Whereas for me, that's my natural skill. So I'm already I feel, not to brag, but 10 steps ahead of another candidate that doesn't know it.
Yeah, and that's great to know as well, mate, because you never know when that opportunity comes up. I never know, if something comes up with finance, maybe in 2 or 3 years, they could be like, oh, we need someone that knows this, and strangely enough, I know it.
Yeah, because you've set that 1 hour a week to actually learn it. It's just. I think it's just comes down to effort you put in, and it just pays off. Hard work really does pay off.
Yeah, and there's also a balance as well. Hard work and just don't burn out. Like, so in my current role, I think I told you I've got so many certifications to do within the next 3
Yeah.
months. It's actually ridiculous,
And it can be overwhelming as well.
and I found I was burning out. Like, I didn't tell you this, but I was working so hard last week that I broke down and just cried.
Yeah, you said you had a little stress cry, didn't you?
Yeah, it's just hit me like a ton of bricks. But that's an example of just I would have been much better just to give myself some time and just relax a little bit and then chill. But equally, when we got not made redundant, but when we got on furlough. So this is the certifications that they required me to do in my new job. I've already done half of them
because you did that you literally did that for no reason. Well, at that point anyway.
Yeah, I've already done it. But so in the long term, I mean, I have to do them again because it has to be listed with the company I'm working for. It can't be independent. So my certifications that I've got are listed as independent and not linked to the company. So they're not really, you can't really use them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I've done them before, so it's much easier and I can do it much more quickly.
Yeah.
And having the goal that I had during furlough to get those certifications done has massively benefited me.
And it's just and another thing as well, Sam, is the job you applied for.
Yes.
I used the comparison earlier of not going for a higher end job because you feel like you're not good enough, but you actually did the opposite of that. Is you went for a job a bit lower grade than you are.
Yes.
And you were overqualified for, but you knew that there was room for progression. So you thought, well, I'm not actually taking a step back. All I'm doing is taking a step to the side so that I can come forward where there's no wall stopping me.
Yes, that's exactly what I did. That is exactly what I did.
And that is you swallowing your pride a little, isn't it? It's you thinking, well, I know that I'm not better than this position that I'm going for, but I also know that long term this has got more stairs to climb.
Yes, that's exactly how I went into it, mate. So I said to myself, it's going to be a lot easier to climb the ladder, and to get a promotion. I think it's going to be easier because I've done this before, and I'm better suited than I really don't want to say it. I am better suited than some of the other people that would go for maybe that senior role.
And that's what I mean. Like, obviously, when we went through like your application and stuff, obviously you were talking to me about it all, and it was apparent. It was so apparent that you were overqualified for the role. And sometimes it's good for the employer to see that because they then realise your potential. I'm not saying you should be cocky about it, and you weren't. You just did your job. You just did what you're good at. And that was how it came across, that you just were overqualified. But I think to be able to do that in such a way that people understand your potential is very important as well.
Yeah, and I did say to them during the interview, and they said, obviously you're overqualified for this, but we'd still like to have you. And I said, well, listen, like, I'm willing to take a step back to take a step forward. And they really liked that.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people love, a lot of companies love their employees to be willing, really, not to be just a yes person, because there's a limit to that, but in comparison to what you did, that is kind of it's a mature step to make.
Yeah, and I could use this example in football as well, right? So I played running back for 2 years. Yeah. And towards the end of my final season in Plymouth, I said, I want to give linebacker a go. And they were like, well, you're not going to get any game time. And I was like, yeah, I know that. I just want to learn it. And he was like, well, you're not going to get any game time, Sam. I did eventually. I got some. But it's like and I was like, yeah, I just want to learn it. And they were like, that's actually really mature of you. And I said, I'm not expecting to get anything out of this. I just want to learn.
Yeah.
And I think that is the most crucial aspect of, like, especially if you're in your 20s, even 30s, to be honest. And it's the same principle for when I went into this job. I did not give a shit how much I was going to be paid. I just wanted to learn.
Yeah. And there is on the other end of the spectrum to that mindset is naivety as well. Yes. Obviously, don't undersell yourself.
Yes.
And obviously your time is worth a certain amount. And do you know what? Actually, let me see if I can find it. So, for just in comparison to what you've just said, I posted this thing because I saw someone. I reposted it, and basically what they said was, let me find it. Okay, so for example, this is kind of a reflection of what you've just said about being overqualified and stuff, and not expecting the pay grade that you thought you might deserve.
Yes.
So this says, if I do a job in 30 minutes, it's because I spent 10 years learning how to do that in 30 minutes. You owe me for the years, not the minutes.
Yes, I've read that before.
And I think that really just reminded me that, so for example, if you're charging a certain wage or you're expecting a certain salary, don't be hesitant and don't be shy, because what you're able to do for that salary, it's not a reflection of how long it takes you to do it. So, for example, why would someone pay a designer 200 quid for an hour's work, whereas the reason you're paying 200 quid is because that designer has done so much work that they're able to do it in an hour, whereas if you went to a different designer, they would take about a week to do it.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're paying for experience.
Yeah, and that's true, and that can work out maybe even financially better for you in the long run if you understand that.
Yeah, exactly, because you're now, instead of spending 2 weeks of someone's time, you're spending 2 hours of someone's time who's actually good at what they do and can get it done more efficiently.
Yeah, better turnaround. Like, you could be paying more, but it's better to turnaround.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's just people's mindset that they don't really understand, especially creatives. We get kind of pushed to the side, and it just looks, because we aren't doing anything physically, especially you as well, it just looks like we're not actually producing anything, because we've not got a plumbing pipe, we've not got a paint roller, we're not actually doing something physical.
I think
but we're still offering a service.
I think a good way to kind of put something on this is no one owes you shit.
Yeah.
And if you have that mindset, then you're golden.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. It's like no one, like, just have that lone wolf kind of mindset. It's like no one owes you anything. You've got to do everything yourself. And that can go a long way for your goals.
Yeah, exactly. It all ties into how you think about things, really, doesn't it? And your intentions.
Yeah.
We've discussed long-term and kind of mid-term. Just to end on it, should we talk about short-term goals?
I was going to say that, micro goals, mate.
So, like, cool. You know, we always say this, and we are literally probably advocates of writing a list and writing a journal. But we always say how, like, just setting up for yourself a to-do list for the day or the week, kind of, they're still goals, aren't they?
Well, if you think about it, smaller goals aligned to, it's like, don't think of them as goals. It's like tasks. So tasks that go into objectives.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So like it's more like you could have 3 tasks which could align to a bigger objective.
Yeah, you're right there. Yeah. So, and all them like 10 different things on your to-do list could work yourself towards that one big thing.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly, mate. So it's like, for me this week, I've got this exam tomorrow. I've also got a little bit of other work, and that aligns with what I want to be qualified and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it aligns with longer term.
Exactly.
Stuff.
Yeah.
So I think all of that are more, much more important than bigger tasks because they accumulate.
Yeah, you're right, and it's just the same with me from when I left uni and when I was in uni, teaching myself After Effects. That wasn't for anything, but it kind of led to the big goal that I'm working towards now of being a digital designer and stuff. And having that knowledge has kind of fueled this goal.
Yeah.
So these little micro like missions that you give yourself every day, it will just help you grow either way. And even if it's not towards a big goal, you might end up realizing that my to-do list for this month that I've completed has actually given me a new goal.
Yeah, no, that's true. Like, you could just do smaller tasks and see where it heads you, where it takes you.
Because a lot of people aren't in the kind of process of thinking, I want to think 10 years ahead or 5 years ahead. They kind of live at life as it is, and there's nothing wrong with that as well. Mentally, they're probably a lot better off because there's less pressure. But them little to-do things that you do can kind of be your... I don't know how to explain it, but like people's goals can just be getting out of bed in the morning. Everyone's perspective is different, and I think the biggest takeaway from this is just because somebody's goal is a lot more ambitious than yours, or vice versa, you're more ambitious than somebody else, it doesn't negate the fact that they don't appreciate life or don't want to do anything.
Good point there. Don't compare. Don't compare to people's stuff.
I think we always say this as well. Everyone's milestones are different.
Yeah. You compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to other people.
Because everybody's situation is different. Somebody might not have the mental capacity to aim for the things that you're aiming for. For example, the After Effects thing that I know, another designer might not actually have the sufficient software to even learn that, but they're actually 20 times better at other basic things that I'm not so good at.
Yeah. There's also this thing with the comparison. It's quite weird. I said that. So someone else is at senior level, right?
Yeah.
And I could be like, oh, why has he got it? And I've probably got about maybe a little bit less experience than him. Maybe just a tad. But, if I was comparing and getting all assy, then maybe I do have the right to complain or something. But at the same time, it's like, I'm happy for him, like, good for him.
I think, do you know what? That's such a good point. That's just made me think, sorry if I cut you off, is being happy for others. It's just that I think it kind of ties into karma, really. Like, just being, I think if you have a positive energy and you release this positive toxins and you release this positive energy towards other people, you're happy for people, naturally positivity will just gravitate towards you and things will just fall into place.
Yeah, just gratitude.
That's it. Yeah. So, I mean, everyone's, I think we can probably end it on this kind of note, is that everyone's goals are different. Don't overdo it in your mind and expect yourself to always achieve your goals, because sometimes things happen, circumstances change, and your goals will change. So don't worry yourself so much if you haven't got to where you thought you'd be. Yeah, exactly. And just always self-reflect, really.
Good point.
Self-reflection is probably most key thing about goals, because you will really reevaluate what your goals are.
Very true.
But thanks again. This is episode 21 as well, Sam, so I can't believe it. Another week done and dusted. Thanks again for everyone's support. I mean, we're only doing this because people are actually listening, so, and obviously it's helping us as well, and we just want to help people. So
thanks, Mum.
Mum, biggest supporter in the world. But again, thanks again for coming together, Sam. I know it's been a bit difficult time-wise for both of us, really, but we're still doing this, powering through.
Yeah, mate, it's been good. We need to change it up at some point.
Yeah, we do, yeah.
I want to do the Wim Hof thing, which we're going to keep talking about.
I know, yeah. I mean, funnily enough, I bumped into you yesterday, didn't I? And we were talking about it.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
I know.
Weird. You look
you too, mate. I've never seen such a stunning hot model. Oh, naughty, teasing me.
Teasing on me.
But again, thanks again for listening. Episode 21 of Just Mates podcast. I've been Nafis. Thank you very much. I've been Sam. Nafis and Sam. Speak to you next week. See you later. See you later. Bye. What podcast is that?